All right, I can't wait to get started. We've already talked about the course and we've talked about the ethics involved in safe manipulation. And now it's time to get our spin on. We're going to start going. I'm getting excited about it and I'm looking forward to doing this. We're spinning. So we're going to talk about how locks work today. And I'm going to start off with just opening this lock and you can see what's happening. And we're going to be opening this lock and just talking about the different parts of it as we go. So let's start. We're going to first reset the lock just by turning it counterclockwise, which is left, several times. And there's two stages in opening one of these locks. The first stage is to enter the combination, and the second stage is to actually open the bolt. So let's go through the combination stage. As you can see in the bottom, the combination on this lock is 78, 24, 50. So the first number we got to enter in is 78. So we've already turned it lots and lots of times to the left. We're going to 78. There we go, 78. Perfect. Now we're going to enter in the second number. So we're going to have to spin it around twice and then go to 24. Now I know some people say it a few different ways. I like to think of going back to 78 twice and then to my second number. Other people say just go to your second number 3 times. It means the same thing, but when you start learning about the internals of the lock, it makes a little bit more sense just to think about going back to 78. So we've got our first number in there. We're turning in the opposite direction to the right, which is clockwise, and we're going to be passing by 78 again. So here we are. When you pass it, you say pick up. So pick up. We're going to go past it a second time. There we go. We're going to say pick up. And then we're going to continue on to our second number, which is 24. There's 24 right there. So we always switch directions. So now we're going to be turning to the left counterclockwise, and we're going to be going once around and then moving to the final number 50. So we're going to go once around, back past 24. We say pick up, and then we're going to go to 50. Now we've dialed in the combination. If you had a school combination lock at school, at this point you would just pull the shackle open and the lock would open. It's a little bit different on a safe. Let's actually get a different view. This is the view. I've added the view from inside the safe. So there's a camera facing towards us, towards the face so you can see what's happening behind the lock. And this is going to show you all the internals. And you can see as we spin, we're spinning back down, usually towards 0. And you can see, there we go, watch. Here we go, we're at 20, we're coming by. You can see that the lever just falls in there. Just falls in that slot. You can see it's pretty much the same slot, the same shape as the slot. So let's just continue. So we just continue turning. And you can see it's opening the bolt. As you turn it, it locks in there. That nose locks in there and it pulls. So that's how the bolt is opened. So 2 stages. First of all, you enter the combination. Then you turn the dial back to about 0. It'll be a little bit different on any safe that you use, but in this one it's about 5. Then the nose will pop into that hole in the cam, and then as you continue turning, it pulls the bolt open. And at this stage, the safe is open. So that's great. That's how it works. And we're going to talk more about what all the different parts mean. Okay, let's try opening again, and we'll look at it from both sides at the same time. As you can see, I've put a few extra words on the screen so you can see some of the parts and see them in action. Let's start with the lever. This right here is the lever. And as you can see, it moves up and down. This little tip part right here is called the nose of the lever. It's called the nose because it kind of looks like a nose. Next is, as you can see, it's spinning around. That's the cam. This whole big brass colored disc here. and it's directly attached to the dial. So whenever I move the dial, it moves. You'll also see in the cam, there's a little hole in it right here. So when that hole is over top of the nose, you can see just as it's coming in, the nose is just coming down just a little bit. It wants to fall in there. It wants to fall in there. And as soon as it falls down into that, the cam's gate, it's going to be able to pull open the lever will get pulled and the bolt will open. So there's two kind of things that are stopping the nose from falling down there. Most of the time, as you can see, it's riding down on the top of the cam. See right here. It's running around on the top surface of the cam. Now, when the cam gate is underneath the nose, you'll see it just kind of falls down just a little bit. We'll talk about why it's not falling down the whole way, but once you fully enter the combination, that's when it's allowed to fall down. And that's because this nose or the lever right up above the nose in this area right here has a 3D part which is facing directly away from the camera, so you can't see it. We'll be looking at it next, but that's what the combination entry is doing. That's what allows it to fall down. Now, as I continue turning, you can see there's a wheel, the big silver bit, moving. This whole disc right here. That is called wheel 3, and there's 3 of them, one for each number in the combination. And they're stacked on top of each other, so you can from this position, you can only see wheel 3. I also want to show you that it's got a gate in it too. So when you have a disc with a hole in it, like the cam gate or the wheel gate, it's called a gate. And you know something's going to fall into it. Something important is going to fall into it. But you can see that there is a piece of the wheel missing there. So let's actually open this lock, and we'll look at it from both sides this time. So we always reset by turning it lots of times to the right, at least 4 times around. And we start at our first number. First number is 78. So we're going to turn it to 78. There we go. It's okay if we're a little bit off. Now we're going to move the dial around once. And remember, you can see there's nothing really happening in lock, just the cam is moving. We continue, and we get to 78 right there. That's one time around. Nothing's happening, nothing's happening. We go a little bit further. Oh, look. As I said, it's called pickup. We pick up a wheel and it starts spinning. We're going to continue round. We can continue round until we get back to 78 again. There we go. And we say pick up again. It's actually picking up the wheel underneath it. But from this position, you can't really see. When we talk about this in the next time we open it, we'll be seeing another camera view from above, which will show the number 2 and number 1 wheel moving. But just keep on turning. We've gone through twice. We're going to turning to the second number, which is 24. So we go to 24. Always reverse directions. We're going to go around once. Nothing's really happening. Just the cam is moving. Nothing really exciting is happening. That nose isn't falling into the cam gate. We keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. We're hitting 24. So nothing's really happened. But as soon as I go past 24, we yell pickup and we see the wheels, the wheel number 3 there, the one closest to us is moving. And we can continue round to 50. One thing I want to show you right now is you can actually see right here, just right where the nose is, right underneath this part that I said was facing into it, into the safe. You can see this is all the gates of all 3. You can see right down into the black back of the safe there. And all our wheel gates are underneath basically the nose of the lever. And now I've entered my combination. We're in phase 2. So we move it back to about 0. And that's where the nose is going to attempt to fall down into the cam gate. There we go. It fell in there really easy. And now if I keep on going, it's going to be able to pull the bolt across. Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to add a third camera and we'll be able to take a look at this in a lot more detail. Okay, we've got our third camera rolling. And this one's a little bit harder to visualize. It's actually a camera inside the safe looking straight down at the top of the lock. So if we were just to move a little bit further inside and look down in this direction, you'd see these parts. Now, there's a few things I've already mentioned that I just want to go over. If you remember, I said there were 3 wheels, one for each combination. We've got 3 numbers on our combination, so we've got 3 wheels. You can only see the third wheel, and that's because they're stacked on top of each other. So here's third wheel right here, and then there is wheel 2 stacked underneath it, and wheel 1 stacked underneath that. And you can see they're basically made out of 3 sandwiched together pieces of metal. 2 sort of silver colored metals for your bread, and then whatever you want inside your sandwich is this brass color. So they have 3 pieces of metal in them. And I've labeled on this the safe door and the cam. And the safe door is obviously just on the other side of this. So if we were just to move inside straight in this direction through the dial, you would bump into wheel 1. If you can see here, we've got the cam, and the cam would be situated just off the top of the screen right here. So I hope you're oriented correctly. Now, I did also mention that the cam or the lever actually is a 3D shape. So here's the lever, moves up and down like this. Here's the nose. And the part that you weren't really able to see before because it's straight into the camera is this part right here. And this is called the fence. You can see I've labeled it right here. So that blurry block of metal is the fence. And it is sitting directly into the camera right here. So it's sitting like this. You can see the fences right here. And the primary reason for the fence is that it's what prevents the lever nose from falling into the cam gate. So this fence right here, if there's something in the way, it can't go down. It can't go down. But if there's a hole there, it can go down. So that's what's happening. I just want to show that currently you can see wheel 3, 2, and 1. These are the gates right here. There are little chunks of metal missing from that. They are directly underneath the fence. So right now, the fence is riding around on the edge of the cam, and when it enters the cam gate, we'll see that it can fall down. And you can see that in the wheel 1, 2, 3 camera, that it's just moving into the 3 wheels gates. And so if we orient them, you can see all 3 of them right here. You can see all the way, you can see it's black there, so you can see all the way down to the base of the lock. So there's nothing here. Now if I jog one of those wheels off, so that the gate is now no longer underneath the fence, when I go back to the cam, it moves in a little, and it will move in. Basically, it's riding here on the edge of the cam, and then there's a wheel behind it. So when you get into the cam gate, it's going to hit the top of the wheel and can't go anywhere. So it's just hits the wheel and nothing happens. You can see and basically when that's happening, you can say that the lock is testing the combination. And a correct combination will have all the gates underneath the fence. So it's only when it's in this position when the nose is in the cam gate and the fence, at that point the fence will be either dropping into the three wheel gates, or the fence will just block on one of the wheels. You can see it's blocking on this wheel right here. So when we try to drop it into the nose gate, it doesn't go very far. It just moves down just a tiny little bit. And if we were to move it back, if we can get it right, you can see it just drops right in. So that is testing. You can call that testing. When the nose goes in, here's a successfully testing. It falls right in there, and when it falls in, then the nose, the the cam will pull the nose, and we'll get the lock to actually unlock the bolt. So the first stage is when you're entering the combination. This sets all the wheel gates underneath the fence. And the second, you move the cam gate underneath the nose, and that tests the combination. That's the fence testing the combination. If the correct combination is in, it will fall down into the cam gate. If it isn't, one of the three wheels will block the fence from dropping. And that's the basic operation of how it works. So let's open it again. Let's start all over again. We're going to watch a little bit more about how the wheels are moving. So we've turned it 4 times to the left counterclockwise. The first number is 78. So we go here to 78. And remember, the cam is always connected to the dial. So as I move the dial, the cam moves, but none of the wheels are moving. Oh, the nose is now in the cam gate. So it's testing the combination, and it's a fail. There's no gates underneath the fence right now. I continue around and getting back to my original number. So remember when we get here, I said pick up. Watch what happens. Wheel 3 now starts turning. We're going to do a full revolution again. So I'm going to rotate back to 78 again. Remember, we yell pick up here, and watch what happens here. Wheel 2 here, we're at 78 now, so wheel 2 should start moving. Yeah, so both of them are moving now. And continue to 24, which is the second number. If you look carefully, you can see that the first two wheels, both of the gates are now underneath the fence. I move it back. The cam's moving, but none of the wheels are moving. We're going to go one complete revolution to 24. Now wheel 3 is going to start moving. We're going to set it to 50, which is the final number. We're at 50. You can see all the gates are lined up here underneath the fence. So I'm going to bring it back down so that to around 0, which is actually on the safe, is 5. And that's when the nose is going to attempt to move into the cam gate. And there's nothing stopping it now. The fence is not being stopped. So now it falls in. And if we just continue turning, you see the bolt is moving open. So that's the full operation of the lock. I want to talk more about how the wheels are being picked up, which is the missing component so far. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about how the cam works and how the wheel pack is manipulated. Because you probably saw sometimes when you turn the dial, the wheels move, and sometimes when you turn the dial, they don't move. So let's look at what's happening with that. We're going to actually look at the cam. So this is the cam. You can see the cam gate right here. If we look at the back side, so this would be normally in the lock like this. Look at the back side. There's this little notch right here. That's a fixed notch. That's just a hunk of metal sticking out of the cam. If we look over here at the wheel, so this is one wheel, you'll see there's a little channel that piece of metal rotates around in. It'll keep rotating until it hits this, which is another fixed piece of metal. It's actually not quite fixed. It actually moves a little, and that's a fly, and that is just a mechanism so that it can get very accurate movements when it's going from left to right. We'll talk about that later. But right now, if you look, there's the metal, there's the channel. So I'm going to put in the channel about here, the top of the lock. Now when it rotates, the wheel, nothing's happening. That chunk of metal is just, that pin is just moving around in the channel. Keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Oh, now, here it is. It's in the channel right here and it's bumping up against this other pin. So as it moves further, now it starts turning the wheel as well. And if I reverse direction on the cam, it's still just traveling, it's not touching anything. Keeps traveling around, keeps traveling around, keeps traveling around, goes a little further, and then it's going to bump into that pin again. There. So now they move as one. And that's why when you set the combination, you're moving the wheel and it's just moving around by itself in the channel and it comes back around. And then it picks it up and starts pushing. Now, exactly the same thing is happening on this wheel. I'll be taking this apart so you can see inside. But behind this wheel, there's another fixed pin, and then that's going to be behaving just like this. So as we continue to move this around, it will go a little ways until the pin underneath this wheel interacts with the this part, the fly of the wheel underneath it. And then when this one turns, both of them turns. And what's really ingenious about this is that you can now leave wheels. You saw when we dialed the first number, wheel 3 started moving, and then it picked up wheel 2, and then it picked after one, sorry, when we moved the cam, if we look at the actual order of what was going on, we move the cam, nothing happens. It will then pick up the first wheel, it will spin around one time and pick up the second wheel, which is actually this is wheel number 3, so it will pick up number 2, the second wheel from the top here. And then we'll continue, that one will spin one rotation around and it'll pick up wheel 3, or the third wheel, which is wheel number 1, which is at the bottom of the pack. And then as you spin, you stop spinning, the bottom wheel will stay still. We start rotating it in the opposite direction. Nothing happens until it picks up wheel 1, or wheel 3, which is the top one, and starts turning. That will turn one rotation around and it'll pick up the wheel in the middle, wheel number 2, and you will then be able to rotate both wheel 1 and 2 to the second number, and then you rotate it in the opposite direction, nothing happens, and then it'll pick up the top wheel again, wheel number 3, and you'll wheel that to the third one. So it's a really ingenious way for a very simple operation. Just look how simple this is. It's basically just, it's just a dial with a big screw bolt on it. The cam screws onto it. And then to lock the cam to the dial, you use one of these, which is called a spline key. And there's a ridge that goes, indentation that goes all the way up the bolt. And then there's these little indentations in the cam. You can just stick this bolt in here. And now the cam is locked onto that. So as this thing spins, the cam always spins. It's locked onto it. They don't move independently anymore. And this is the only sort of interaction with the outside of the lock. The only thing that interacts with the outside of the lock is the handle, this little dial, the dial handle. And that only turns the cam. The rest of it is all very loose coupling. So as you remember, the lever is just running around the top of this. That little tiny piece of metal sticking out of the bottom here is moving these wheels. And then when all the gates are in place, cam will move in, and then you use the leverage from the dial to pull open the lock. So it's really ingenious just how, with just being able to turn something left and right, that you can set three numbers on your combination, set three wheels to the exact location you want, and also activate the lever to open the lock. So it is really ingenious. I'm going to try and take out the wheel pack so you can see a little bit more of the underneath part of the wheel. Okay, I've taken this lock apart. I've just removed a lock to stop on top of here and a little spacer. So we'll see that it's pretty much the same all the way down. The cam on its bottom side has a pin that spins around in a channel right here. And then it will eventually run up against another pin right here. And once that, it starts pushing and the wheel will start turning. If we look underneath this, if we remove this, we'll look underneath this wheel, we'll see it's exactly like the cam. Cam has a pin at the bottom. This one has a pin at the bottom. And again, there's another channel here with another fly in it for it to push against when it's spinning. So this is just just an amazing piece of technology, because the only thing that you can do with a lock is to spin the dial left and right. That's the only thing you can do. But you can stop these three wheels and position them exactly where you want each one to be, just by turning them one direction and then turning them the other direction. So I think that's just an amazing design. And these wheels actually are more complicated than they probably first appear. For one thing, you can see that these pins, one of them, the one in the back is fixed, but this moves just a little bit. Just a little bit. And it's called a fly. And I'll be doing a special topic to talk about that more in detail. But it's just so that um, these pins on the back have thickness. That they're not just pins like pins and needles, but they have thickness. So if you were to not have a little bit of give in them, you wouldn't be able to, when you approach a number from the left-hand turn or the right-hand turn, they would be different. And as you keep moving the dial around, you'll find that the numbers start drifting. So these are an ingenious mechanism that just keeps everything tight and everything just working really well. The second thing is we've mentioned very, very quickly is that the wheels aren't just solid discs. They're actually a sandwich of three pieces of metal. And the reason for that is that they actually have the ability to change the combination. And I'll be putting a special topic on how combination changes work and how to do them. But basically, um, you're going to be sticking a key in here and turning, and that will allow the middle part of this to rotate relative to the outer part. And that allows you to set a combination. And it's ingenious, just absolutely ingenious mechanism that allows you to very easily, without even having to open up the lock, to be able to change the combination. So these things have a lot of design, a lot of thought that's gone into them. And it's just so simple that just turning the dial left and right will allow you to position three wheels exactly where you want them. I wanted to summarize what the three main components of the locks are. The first component is basically the dial and cam, and they form a single mechanism. Um, when you screw the cam on, you use a spline key, and the spline key fixes it. Just these there's a indentation up the entire side of the bolt of the screw here, and then there's indentations inside the cam. So they form a little line. You stick a key in them, and now these two are fixed. The cam is now totally fixed to the dial. And that is just one piece. That's the only sort of way the lock deals with from the outside. You can turn it left, you can turn it right. That's the only thing you can do. And it's all fixed together. The second piece, which is probably the most complicated piece, is the wheel pack. And we've already gone through how it works. There's a part of the underside of the cam, a pin that fits into another pin that spins. And when you reverse direction, it will follow it around until it goes one revolution, exactly one revolution. That's what the fly provides, exactly one revolution before it starts moving again. And by dialing those left or right, you can set the three gates of the three gates of the wheels in a position. That's when the third part comes in, which is the bolt assembly or the lever assembly. The lever, as you remember, has two main parts. It has the nose, which fits down into the cam gate, and then the cam can grab it and actually pull on it. And the pulling on it is what pulls here. So it just yanks on it and pulls the bolt. The bolt's just sitting there. It's got a small ball bearing in it, so it doesn't move by itself, so it's a little safer, but it's very simple. And then again, on the top side of the fence is the part that actually tests the combination. So if all the gates of the wheels are underneath this can drop in to the cam, and then the cam will be able to pull it out. So three parts: the cam, and the spindle and the dial, the wheel pack, and then the bolt and lever assembly. And it's just an ingenious design that works just so well. Okay, I think we know all the parts of a lock, how they operate together, and basically how the lock works. Let's just open this one last time so we can talk about all the operations. And you can see them in action with what you've learned. So if you remember, the first thing we do when we're starting to open a lock is we turn it 4 times to the left. And that is just to reset the lock, which means that we're going to be picking up all 3 wheels. So when you move the dial, you're moving all 3 wheels. And that allows us to place wheel number 1. So let's see what happens here. So remember, there's a pin in the bottom of the cam. It's moving around the channel and it hasn't hit the fly or the pin sticking up on the top of wheel 3 yet. There we go. I can feel it. It just touched it. So now the cam's pin is now pushing on wheel 3's top pin. Now wheel 3 will move in unison with the cam. Now there's a pin on the bottom of wheel 3, which is running in wheel 2's channel, and it will eventually pick up the pin fly on the top of wheel 2. So we'll just continue turning it. There, almost there. There, okay. So now, as I move the dial, it's moving the cam. The pin in the cam on the top of wheel 3 is now pushing wheel 3 around. And there's a pin on the bottom of wheel 3, which is now pushing on a pin on the top of wheel 2. So as I move the dial, I'm moving wheel 3 and 2, the top 2 wheels. And I continue doing. Now there's a pin moving around the bottom of wheel 2 in wheel 1's slot, but it hasn't come in contact with the pin on top, the fly pin on top of wheel 1. So it's spinning, spinning, spinning. Yeah. So now the pin on the bottom of wheel 2 is touching the pin on the bottom of wheel 1. So as I spin this, I turn the dial, the cam moves. The pin on the bottom of the cam moves the pin on the top of wheel 3. The pin on the bottom of wheel 3 pushes on the pin on the top of wheel 2. And the pin on the bottom of wheel 2 pushes on the top of wheel 1. So now they are all moving in unison. And this is what the position you're trying to get into as you move the dial around 4 times to reset the lock to ready to turn in the combination. Now our first number is 78. So now all the wheels are set at 78. And I can move the cam all the way around. That pin's moving around in the slot, but it's not touching the pin on the top of wheel 3 till we go around exactly 78. And that's what the fly gives us, that exactly 78, not the width, because those pins have width. The fly moving helps with that. So now I'm at 78. So if I move this a little further, I'm going to start moving wheel 3. All right. And I can continue around to 78 again. It's just wheel 3 that's moving the top wheel. Here I am coming up on 78. So now I'm going to start moving wheel 2. Great. And I continue around this to the second number, which is 24. And at this state, we have wheel 1 at 78, and then wheel 2 and 3 at 24. Now I want to move the final wheel, the top wheel, wheel number 3. So I'm going to move it one entire rotation around. That pin's going to have to spin around by itself until it gets to 24 again. Here we're at 24, so now wheel 3 will start moving. And I'm going to move it to 50. And now I've entered in all the numbers in the combination. You can see the gates are right underneath the fence. I'm just going to turn it back so that the nose will fall into the cam gate. And there we go. Just keep going to pull the bolt open. And that's how a group 2 combination safe lock works.